Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through sources and pull out the key ideas for you.
And today, we're getting into something fascinating. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew.
Exactly. It's this idea that, well, everyone, no matter how powerful they seem, has a kind of hidden lever, a weak spot.
Right. And understanding this isn't really about, just manipulating people, though that's part of the warning. It's more about getting this profound insight into what actually drives them.
Yeah, what makes them tick. So we'll look at some strategies to uncover these vulnerabilities, these sort of chinks in the armor.
And we'll see how people throughout history, even some notorious con artists, have used this understanding.
Okay, so the core concept of Law 33 is basically this. Everyone has a weakness, like a gap in the castle wall, metaphorically speaking.
And that weakness could be anything, really. An insecurity, maybe an emotion they just can't control, a deep need.
Or even just like a secret pleasure, something small.
Right. And once you find it, that becomes the thumbscrew, that point of leverage.
It's a bit intense, the phrasing, but it gets the point across. There's this great Aesop's fable that sort of sets the scene perfectly. The lion, the chamois, and the fox.
Ah, yes. Classic illustration of how pride specifically could be turned against someone.
Walk us through that one. How does this fox, pretending to be a friend, use the lion's own vanity?
Well, you've got this powerful lion chasing a chamois, right? Almost catches it, but they get to this huge ravine.
And the chamois just leaps across. Easy.
Exactly. Nimble thing. The lion's stuck. Then along comes this fox, calls himself a friend, starts laying on the flattery thick.
Saying things like,
Oh, what? With your strength,
Right.
your amazing agility, you're going to let a little chamois beat you. You just have to will it. You can definitely make that jump.
playing right into the lion's ego.
Totally. Assures him of his, quote, disinterested friendship. The lion, just boiling with pride and probably
He
frustration.
jumps.
He jumps, flings himself into the ravine, doesn't make it, and dies.
And the fox.
The fox, of course, hangs around and picks his bones clean for the next month.
So the takeaway there is pretty clear. Someone's pride, their overconfidence, that can be the exact thing someone else uses against them. Flattery often brings it right to the surface.
Absolutely. It magnifies that potential weakness.
Okay, so we know these vulnerabilities exist, but the real challenge is figuring out how to spot them, right? People put up walls.
They absolutely do. It's human nature to protect yourself. Constantly pushing against that resistance is, well, it's exhausting.
So you need a smarter approach.
Exactly. Find that one gap, that one chink. And the first step is really tuning into the signals people can't control.
Like unconscious tells.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Sigmund Freud had that great quote, something like, "No mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips."
Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Yeah, I remember that. It's quite vivid.
It is. So you're not just listening to what they say, but paying attention to how they say it, where. The little things. Unconscious leakage.
Okay, but practically speaking, how do you see this betrayal oozing out? It sounds a bit dramatic. Are we talking obvious nervous latex or sometimes? But often it's much subtler. Think about Talleyrand's technique. He'd seem to open up, share some secret, maybe real, maybe made up, but definitely unimportant.
To get the other person to let their guard down.
Exactly. It prompts a more genuine, maybe less guarded response. And in that response, you might catch a glimpse of a real weakness.
Interesting. So beyond tricks like that, what else?
Pay attention to the small stuff. How someone tips a waiter, what makes their eyes light up, Hidden messages, maybe even in how they dress.
You're looking for their idols, the source calls them, what they worship.
Right, what they'll do almost anything to get. Because the big weakness is, people consciously hide those. It's the small unconscious stuff, the things outside our direct control that often reveal the most.
That feels like detective work almost. Can you give us an example? Someone actually using these subtle clues.
Oh, definitely. The con artist, Yellow Kid, master observer. He was targeting this rich banker in Omaha for a completely fake mining stock deal.
Okay, standard con setup. Right. But the banker was cautious. Weil, though, was watching everything. And he noticed the banker's wife. Specifically, how delighted she was by a certain perfume. Caudy's April Violets.
Just a perfume preference? Seems trivial.
You'd think. But Weil saw an opening. He used that tiny detail.
How? What did he do with that information?
It was quite clever. He got hold of some empty, fancy-looking French perfume bottles, filled them with that exact perfume, April Violets,
Okay.
and then presented them to the wife as this super rare, exclusive blend, Claimed it was, especially made for me by a French perfumer, put up for me in Cologne. All nonsense, of course.
And she bought it.
She was, quote, enraptured, called it the most wonderful, most exotic fragrance. Now, the key isn't the perfume itself.
It's the effect, right? The feeling of being special, getting something exclusive.
Exactly. It was subtle flattery. It changed how the couple saw Weil. Made him seem connected, generous, discerning. It softened the banker.
And he invested.
He invested $350,000.
Huh.
Because his wife was impressed. He trusted her judgment, and by extension, trusted Weil. All from noticing a preference for a specific perfume.
Wow. That really shows how a tiny detail, if it connects to someone's pleasure or vanity, can be a massive lever.
It absolutely can. It wasn't about the gift. It was about understanding how to make it feel significant to her.
Incredible. Okay, let's move to another method the sources discuss. This one's about finding the helpless child and filling the void. What's the idea here?
Well, the thinking is that a lot of our weaknesses actually start way back in childhood.
How so?
They might come from being maybe over-pampered, spoiled even, or more often from having some deep emotional needs that just weren't met.
Things that were lacking.
Right, and these gaps, these deficiencies, they might get buried as we grow up, but they don't really go away.
Okay.
So if you can somehow touch on that old wound, that hidden need, people often regress. They might start acting, well, almost like a child again.
And if you can spot that need, that secret desire or indulgence.
And then provide it, or even just something that looks like it, a facsimile, they can become almost powerless to resist you.
Interesting. And what about these voids? What are the common ones people are trying to fill?
The sources point to two main ones: insecurity and unhappiness. Deep-seated stuff.
Insecurity.
Right.
Like needing validation.
Yeah, people who crave social approval need to feel accepted, admired, and then chronic unhappiness, where the roots go really deep and they often can't even pinpoint why they feel that way.
And these people are easier targets.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
They're usually less adept at hiding their weaknesses.
Yeah.
So if you can figure out how to fill that void for them, even temporarily, that gives you enormous power, prolonged power even.
Let's look at Count Victor Lustig, another legendary con man. He shows up at this posh hotel in Palm Beach.
And he's just watching everyone. The sources say he had an eagle eye for other people's weaknesses, always scanning.
And he zooms in on this guy, Herman Lawler. What was it about Lawler?
Lawler was textbook new money. You could just smell the insecurity. He desperately wanted social validation.
How could Lustig tell?
The signals were obvious, apparently. Over-tipping waiters, talking way too loudly about his business deals, getting nervous around the hotel staff like the concierges.
Trying too hard.
Exactly. Chronically insecure, just hungering for respect, and probably, a quick fix for his underlying anxiety about not fitting in.
So Lustig sees this massive void, and what does he offer? Not money, right?
No, not at first. He offered Lawler friendship.
Friendship. How does that work as a con?
It was brilliant because Lustig presented himself as this European count. So his friendship instantly gave Lawler what he craved. Perceived respect from the other wealthy guests. Access to this, glittering world of old wealth that Lawler felt excluded from.
So it filled that social validation void immediately.
Instantly. And then came the bigger play. Lustig confides in Lawler, pretends he has his own money troubles. Very relatable.
Great builds trust.
Right. And then he introduces his supposed solution, this money-making machine, a fancy mahogany box that could supposedly duplicate currency bills.
A magic money box. Sounds legit.
Well, Lustig played it perfectly. He seemed reluctant to even talk about it, let alone sell it. Made it seem incredibly valuable in secret.
Which just made Lawler want it more.
Of course. Lawler was desperate to solve his own, likely real financial worries, desperate to keep his connection to the Count, desperate for a quick fix.
And he bought the box.
Paid $25,000 for it. A completely worthless box, naturally.
So Lustig wasn't just selling a machine.
No, he was selling a solution to Lawler's deepest anxieties. Status, relief, belonging. He didn't just spot the need. He filled that psychic void. Found the helpless, insecure child within Lawler.
That's a powerful illustration of exploiting those deep needs. Okay, let's shift gears again. Another approach involves looking for something maybe less obvious. Contrasts. Look for contrasts and feed on uncontrollable emotions. This feels a bit more psychological.
It definitely delves deeper. The idea of contrast is fascinating. This notion that what people show on the surface often hides the exact opposite underneath.
Like what kind of opposite?
Well, the classic example is the really loud, aggressive, chest-thumping type, who's often masking deep cowardice.
Okay, I can see that.
Or someone with a very prudish, buttoned-up exterior, might actually be hiding intense lust or desire. The rigidly controlled person might secretly crave chaos and adventure.
The shy person wanting attention.
Exactly. So you don't just take people at face value. You probe beyond the facade. Look for weaknesses in the opposite of what they project.
And the uncontrollable emotions part.
These are those really raw, powerful drives. Lust, greed, vanity, intense hatred, maybe paranoid fears that seem way out of proportion to the actual situation.
Primal stuff.
Very primal. When people are in the grip of these emotions, they often lose self-control. And when they lose control,
You gain control.
that's the principle. These strong emotions are often hard to hide completely, making them visible and therefore potentially exploitable.
We have a really stark historical example here. Otto von Bismarck and King William of Prussia. Back in 1862, William makes Bismarck premier. Bismarck's ambitious, military-minded.
Right. And he gives his speech, the famous Iron and Blood speech, causes a massive uproar. Liberals are furious. The Queen is against him.
And King William gets scared. Right. Starts thinking about Louis XVI and the guillotine.
He was terrified. Now, the logical move for Bismarck might seem to be backtracking, apologizing, smoothing things over.
But he did the opposite.
Completely the opposite. Bismarck had figured William out. He knew the king was outwardly timid, maybe even seemed weak. But underneath,
There was something else.
yes, a hidden, deep yearning. William secretly wanted to be seen as a great and mighty king. He felt ashamed of being pushed around, especially by Parliament or his own wife. His timidity masked the need to prove his courage.
So Bismarck didn't soothe him, he challenged him.
Exactly. He appealed directly to that hidden desire. Talked about the king's honor, his military duty, the shame of letting others dictate terms. He essentially asked, how can you allow this? Wouldn't it be better to die fighting for your royal rights?
Wow. He played directly on that hidden insecurity, that hidden desire for strength.
And it worked. William stood up to his wife, stood up to Parliament, backed Bismarck's plan to build up the army,
Which led to?
led to Prussia fighting and winning 3 wars,
Yeah.
ultimately forging the German Empire. Bismarck effectively became the strong hand William secretly craved but was too afraid to be himself. He exploited that contrast perfectly.
Incredible. Turning timidity into bold action by appealing to the hidden opposite. Okay, one more core strategy. Sometimes it's not about the leader's weakness, but finding someone else's. Find the weak link.
Right. This acknowledges that the person officially in charge, the king or the CEO or whatever, isn't always the one with the most influence day to day.
There's often someone behind the scenes.
Exactly. A powerful advisor, a spouse, a favorite, maybe even the court fool in some historical contexts. And that person, the one whose power might be less official, less secure.
They might actually have more exploitable weaknesses because their position is precarious.
Precisely. Their power might depend on charm or favor or manipulation, things that make them inherently more insecure. And even within a group that seems totally united, there's almost always one person, one link in the chain that's weaker than the others. That's the one you apply pressure to.
Cardinal Richelieu seems like the absolute master of this, early in his career as a young bishop.
Yeah, he gives this big speech before the Estates of France. Young King Louis III is there, but who does Richelieu focus all his praise on?
Not the king.
Nope, all on the Queen Mother, Marie de Medici. Just heaps long and fulsome praise on her.
Why her? How was she the weak link? She seemed powerful.
She was the power broker then, but Richelieu saw deeper. He identified her as, fundamentally, an insecure woman who needed constant masculine attention. Her weakness wasn't obvious political vulnerability, it was emotional neediness.
So he flattered her directly.
And indirectly, he even sucked up to her arrogant favorite, Concino Concini, knowing that influencing the favorite was key to influencing Marie.
Okay, but then things flipped, right? Louis XIII grew up, had Concini killed, basically pushed his mother aside and even imprisoned her. Most people abandoned Marie then.
But not Richelieu. And this is the genius part. He stuck by her, became her only remaining powerful friend.
Why? What was the strategic advantage?
Because Louis XIII, despite overthrowing her political power, remained deeply, inordinately attached to his mother emotionally. Richelieu understood that bond. By staying loyal to Marie, he became the essential go-between, the liaison to the king.
Ah, so his loyalty to the weakened link actually secured his access to the real power.
Exactly. It allowed him to survive that whole palace coup and eventually rise to become cardinal. He played the long game, understanding the enduring emotional ties.
And then later, when he didn't need Marie anymore, he found a new weak link in Louis XIII himself.
Yes, once Richelieu was established, he shifted focus. He recognized Louis's own core weakness, that helpless child aspect, his indecisiveness. The king needed someone strong to lean on.
He needed an adult figure.
Pretty much. So Richelieu constantly pushed Louis towards bold ventures, fighting the Huguenots, going to war with Spain. Big complex things the king couldn't possibly manage alone.
Making himself indispensable.
Utterly. For 18 years, Richelieu essentially ran France by exploiting the king's need for a firm hand, molding the country into a major European power in the process. Masterclass in finding and leveraging the weak link, first the mother, then the son.
That's truly masterful maneuvering. Now, for a slightly different, maybe more scandalous take on the weak link, Catherine de' Medicis and her flying squadron.
Ah, yes. Catherine, as regent for her young sons, faced constant threats from powerful noblemen like Antoine de Bourbon and the Prince of Condé. Big egos, big ambitions.
And she figured out their Achilles heel.
She did. She learned from her own husband, King Henri II, and his very public affair with his mistress, Diane de Poitiers. She saw firsthand men's, let's call it, notorious weakness for young women. She understood this psychological quirk. Men often want to feel they've charmed or won a woman over based on their own merits, not just their status. This creates, as the source says, a huge blind spot. Their vanity overrides their caution.
So her solution was?
The Escadron Volant, the flying squadron. Basically, a group of very attractive, intelligent, and loyal maids of honor.
Weaponized charm, essentially.
You could call it that. She'd deploy them strategically. For instance, one maid, Louise de Rouet, successfully seduced Antoine de Bourbon.
And reported back to Catherine.
Everything he said and did. Later, another maid, Charlotte de Semblancay, was assigned to Henri of Navarre, even though he was married to Catherine's own daughter.
Ruthless.
Absolutely pragmatic. And when Henri of Navarre got too close to another potential rival, the Duke of Alençon, threatening Catherine's position.
Let me guess. She sent Charlotte after Alençon too.
You got it. And the result? The two powerful men started fighting over Charlotte. Their alliance crumbled, and the threat to Catherine evaporated.
Wow. Just shows how powerful those uncontrollable emotions, like lust and vanity, can be as levers, especially when you target the weak link.
Precisely. It's a stark example.
Okay, so we've seen all of these ways to identify and potentially use weaknesses. But it's not foolproof, is it? There's a danger here, a reversal the sources warn about.
Oh, definitely. Playing with these deep-seated vulnerabilities is, well, playing with fire. You can easily stir up emotions or actions that spiral out of your control.
How so?
Well, you push a timid person to be bold, like Bismarck did with William. But maybe they go too far, become reckless in a way you didn't intend.
Or you fulfill someone's need for attention.
Right. And suddenly they need more attention, more validation than you're willing or able to give. They become demanding, clingy.
And that helpless child element you were playing on.
It can turn on you. The dependency can become resentment, or they might act out in childish ways that disrupt your plans.
So the more emotional or deep-seated the weakness you're targeting.
The greater the potential for unpredictable, dangerous blowback. You really have to know the limits to this game, as the source puts it.
It's not just about the thrill of having influence.
No, the goal should be strategic advantage. Achieving your aims, not just messing with people's heads for the sake of it. That can backfire spectacularly.
Right. Okay, so wrapping this up. We've explored this idea that pretty much everyone has a thumbscrew, some hidden vulnerability.
Whether it's insecurity, a need left over from childhood, an overwhelming passion. Understanding these gives you real insight into why people do what they do.
And we've seen how influential figures, for better or worse, have used this understanding throughout history. It's a powerful lens on human behavior.
Absolutely. It helps explain that subtle, often unseen dance of power and influence that's always happening around us, seeing beneath the surface.
So the final thought for you, our listener, to take away and maybe mull over. If it's true that everyone has these vulnerabilities, what does that really tell you about the dynamics you see in your own life, at work, or anywhere else?
And perhaps even more importantly, how might becoming aware of your own thumbscrews, your own hidden livers, be the most powerful form of self-knowledge you can gain?